Asia Tech Podcast with Graham Brown and Michael Waits.
Hi, this is Michael Waits from Asia Tech Podcast Stories. I'm here with Grant Bertoli. Grant is the CEO of Marketbuzzz, which is a part of the Buzzebees group. Grant, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. Thanks for allowing me to join you.
Oh, God, it's my pleasure. It seems like there's a lot to talk about. I do have a little bit of knowledge about Buzzebees, actually. I know Michael. Not well, but well enough. And I've actually been in the offices as long as they're still where they used to be. Are you on, Raman 9 still?
Yeah, that's it. And I think Michael's been a pretty popular bloke over the last couple of years.
You think so?
Yeah, he's certainly been, particularly with his business, growing and growing. So I think his popularity's gone with it. He seems to be on many interviews as well.
Good. We'll have to get him on the show, too. Do you want to talk a little bit about your background? So where are you from originally?
Sure. Originally, I'm from Australia.
Okay.
But I haven't lived in Australia for many years. In fact, probably over 20 years now.
Great.
And I came up to Taiwan in 1995 and fell in love with Asia. And with the exception of probably 4 years in the US, I've been in Asia for the rest of the time.
What were you doing in the United States for 4 years, and where were you?
I was working for the same company. It was with the TNS Group, which is now part of WPP.
What is TNS actually? I was looking at it, but I wasn't able to find out. What exactly is TNS?
Yeah, it's a marketing research company, part of the Kantar Group, which is obviously part of the large conglomerate with WPP.
Got it.
And really back in that time, it was known as the Frank Small and Associates Group, and was then bought out by Sophorus, which ultimately was bought out by Taylor Nelson.
Got it. So that's where the TNS comes from.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what exactly were you doing there, and how did it lead to where you are now?
Yeah, I kind of fell into it. Didn't
we all?
Yeah. You end up in a situation where you're looking for opportunities, and I fell into the marketing research world and really enjoyed it. And then I got an itch to travel and really wanted to get up into Asia and learn a lot more about what was going on. And in 1995, I took the step to go to Taiwan, which the step was, there was two elements to it. One, Taiwan, there wasn't much English, so it forced me to learn another language. And two, there was surfing in Taiwan as well, and not many people knew about it at the time. So I decided, on those two levels, and I met the company, and it was a great bunch of people at the time, very dynamic, very professional, and really wanted to make something big out of the organization. And they were great, really good, and we had an exceptional time in Taiwan in 95.
So how important was surfing to you? I mean, it's where are you from in Australia? Are you Sydney?
From Sydney. Yes, originally from Sydney and Manly.
Manly, fair enough.
Yeah, there you go. So it was an important part of my life back then, and I still enjoy it if I get the chance to do it. Not so much now, but I'd always grab a surfboard if I could find one and get out there and surf some waves.
So do you think surfing is a solitary thing, or is it more of a, it feels to me like the camaraderie among surfers is actually really strong, maybe stronger than most people realize, no?
Oh, yeah, I think so. And it's, how would I define it? It's more a lifestyle than anything else. It's a way of life. And we used to work through the week and go out to the beach on the weekends, and there'd be a whole group, and we'd, socialize together and go surfing together and have dinner and everything together as well. So, yeah, there's more to it. Go on surfing trips and go on location, safari stuff. It was all around the country down there. It was great. It was really good. So, I enjoy it whenever I can. It's obviously not part of the life anymore, but certainly was an important part. Not only surfing, I think sport in general. I love. So there's all elements around sport which I enjoy, and I also. Yeah, I was just going to say I draw parallels to sporting life as well as business, and there's some complementary elements to both.
Well, that was the whole point, right? I mean, the surfing itself is actually really interesting to me. I've been a surfing fan since I was a child, right? I used to watch Pipeline on TV. So,
Mm.
been very interested in it, but also because it looks like one thing, but to me it's actually another thing, right? And the whole concept of,
Yeah.
there's only one person on the board at a time, but there really is a complete support system of people around it. And I don't want to be too metaphorical, but I think what you're saying is actually really true. And that's why I actually brought it up, because you can surf that wave alone, or you can surf it with, the guy on the boat who's going to help you if something bad happens, right? Or the person that tows you in if you're doing tow-in surfing, you're doing bigger waves. A bigger wave is like a bigger deal. There is a support system there sometimes, even if you can't see it. And I think surfers know that. But I also think if it's a lifestyle, then that lifestyle actually gets imbued into your business life as well, because you understand that even if it looks like you're doing something alone, you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a tremendous camaraderie with it, and as you've quite rightly pointed out, I mean, when you're out in the water and you're out there with others, you're talking to them and socializing, even with people you don't even know.
Right.
There's that common link between each other, and you both have the same sort of enjoyment out of it. And it really is that camaraderie. And I would hope that those sorts of things are transcended into business, because camaraderie too is important with company culture as well.
Yeah. So you worked for how many years in a big shop? 20 more?
Yeah, about 20 years all up. I was with TNS for it was about 16 years, and then I moved over to Ipsos, which was another company, similar industry, market research, and was doing a role there for Southeast Asia as CEO, and then moved into a managing director for one of their business lines, which is Connect, and looked after Asia Pacific for them.
So when did it hit you that mobile was really going to matter? I mean, we always say out here that most people's introduction to the internet is not on a laptop or on a desktop, like it probably was for you, and I know it was for me. But most people's introduction to the internet, and that means everything that has to do with sort of information, is mobile, which means they always have it with them. When did you figure out this is really going to matter, like mobile matters?
Yeah, it was probably around about 6 to 8 years ago where you really saw the gradual progression of mobile. But you're right. I mean, it's basically leapfrog other technology. Yes, people with money had the desktop and the laptop prior, and obviously business did. But if you're talking about most of Asia, they've really just jumped on the mobile, and that's certainly been, or the way I looked at it, a great opportunity to be able to connect. And I think the importance out of the mobile itself for Asia is, it's not just about the entertainment value or the personal level, but even the business side of things is really critical here. We run, and obviously we're in the information area, but we ran a study recently, and 89% of businesses here are using social media on mobile for business in Thailand, which is an incredible number when you look at it, because it doesn't matter whether it's to connect with new customers or build relationships or advertise or whatever you're doing with your business. But 9 out of 10 businesses are using social media through mobile. Yep. And at the time I knew the importance of it, but I could tell you over the last probably 5 years that's just accelerated to even more.
How would you segment it out? In other words, when you say using social media on mobile, is it Instagram? Is it Snapchat? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it all of them? And how does it break down? And where's the impact as well? I'm really curious about this, right? So we run businesses too, and I'm curious about where the biggest impact is and what the breakdown is between usage, actually.
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. Let me start at the top, and that is that over 70% of people have access to the mobile, which is growing here in Thailand, and the same figures will exist across Southeast Asia. Obviously, Singapore would be much higher than that. But when you're talking about just the device itself and the ability to interact with it, you've got pretty much 3 elements around it. One, you've got the connection through chats So for Thailand, it'll be Line, and then you've got Facebook, which is huge. You'll always have Google on there as well. Line and Facebook for Thailand are pretty much universal. And that'll only grow and continue to grow even amongst the older people. And Line will tell you their fastest growing group is the over 50s. So they're very prevalent in that age. And, the connection between the older age people now is great because they're all connecting up with each other through Line and sharing and doing everything else.
Interesting.
Facebook, on the other hand, is very big, very popular. I think there's numbers that are floating around, and Facebook popularizes this. I think Bangkok's probably the largest user and uploader of pictures in the world. Yes. So it's certainly a huge part of people's lives here.
Yeah, I mean, I always found it really interesting that Facebook ended up being the largest Facebook city in the world was in Thailand. It seems sort of counterintuitive, but I think the facts prove it out. And how are businesses using the social media? And you didn't talk about Instagram at all, which is interesting to me. But do you consider Instagram in the same package as Facebook because it's owned by the same company?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I didn't touch on it, but it's an important one. When you have a look at the other uses, Instagram comes up. It's certainly used, but nowhere near the level at which Line and also Facebook. In fact, Facebook Messenger is probably used more than Instagram on the numbers that we've looked at.
And do you
simply on the number of users?
Yeah. Do you see? I mean, the number of users. Sure, Facebook has almost 1.8 billion, almost 1.9 billion users globally, and it would just make sense that for people that are chatting or sending messages back and forth to each other, that Messenger would be the key place for them to do that. And Line as well, just because it's sort of, there must be something like 40 million Line users in Thailand alone, if my numbers are correct. So it's a huge installed base as well.
Yeah, it is. It's very large. And the point to that is that the social fabric is one element to it. So, the connectivity and the entertainment value and everything like that. But as we started to talk about, the business perspective of it is huge. It's, the ability to sell, the ability to connect, even the payment gateways, which had been previously an issue to do with online now, have all been addressed, and the ability to pay online or the ability to connect between offline and online and go and buy yourself a cup of coffee and use your mobile phone to pay for it these days is already available for all Thais.
Right. So what do you see? How do you see the development of something we used to call 2 or 3 years ago F-commerce? I don't hear so many people talking about it anymore, but I do see Line. Arya has done some pretty incredible things and has raised the profile of Line from just sort of a chat application to an all-in-one kind of business application, right? The sort of at Line accounts that you can have, the business accounts. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that's impacted Facebook and their F-commerce?
Yeah, I think I think both of them have got their own benefits to utilizing the platform. I think the biggest challenge for businesses and how they need to interact with either platform is to really truly understand what the platforms are being used for and how do you better connect with whoever the target audience is. B over at Line has done a great job of introducing their Business Connect products, and they're all trying to get, and obviously through the mobile device itself, to connect brands with consumers and consumers to brands in a much closer way. Given the fact that, again, mobile's used so much and is used so often throughout the course of a day. It's not often that a Thai won't pick their phone up first thing in the morning and continue to use it till they go to sleep at night. And the amount of time you can access them and whenever they need it is all there in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's the numbers that I've seen in terms of expenditure per individual. I think the mobile phone is in the top 3. So they're foregoing, other lifestyle choices and expenditure simply to buy and to continue to consume a mobile phone. Yeah, and that's when you see the real power behind the mobile.
The platform is just insanely powerful, right? I'm looking on my phone right now, and if I exclude Facebook and Slack, I'm looking at Messenger, Line, Telegram, WeChat. I have an iPhone, obviously, so there's the iMessages platform, Signal, Zoom, which I don't use so much, and then Google Hangouts. And there are more. Do you see all of them moving to a place? Telegram obviously is completely encrypted, so it's front to back encryption. It's supposed to have all of your messages protected so that nobody can read them regardless. Even Telegram themselves can't see them. Do you see all of these platforms? I mean, and WeChat obviously in China dominates. Like WeChat in China is the internet to a certain extent, right? Do you see Line trying to move in that direction in Thailand and in the rest of Southeast Asia? And what I really want to do is just get your understanding of how mobile works, because then I want to talk about both Buzzebees and Marketbuzzz as well and see what you guys are doing in those realms. So I'm just curious how you feel about the progression of these chat applications, and then let's talk a little bit about how it impacts your businesses.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think the key element to Line, firstly, is that they're in 4 key markets. For Southeast Asia, as you pointed out, here in Thailand, it's very, very dominant. They're starting to put more marketing into Indonesia and really starting to pump it up. But usually, what you'll find in each country is you'll have one dominant chat app. It doesn't matter which location you go to, and it could vary depending on which country you're in. So Thailand, it's obviously Line, but WhatsApp isn't there yet. And there'd have to be a hell of a lot of investment to go behind that. But yet it's owned by good backers, so you never know how they'll approach things.
Correct.
I think from a Line perspective. From my perspective, if you have a look at what their strategy is, they're really offering or trying to monetize those elements around connecting the businesses with the people, the Thais, as much as possible. And I think one of the strategies, the important strategies around that, which we also value, is that you only have a certain amount of apps on your phone and only use a certain number throughout the course of a day. So really what they're trying to do or aiming to do is to keep people with inside Line for as long as they can. And be able to interact with them on a number of fronts. So whether it's through just the chat app or whether it's through even the TV and the video content or even the shopping elements that they've got around it, and of course all the business connection options you've got, to keep people as active and as engaged in that platform really is critical for their success. And if they do a good job of it and keep people there and as active and offer what the Thais want through the platform, then they should be able to do a good job of it. They have the reach.
They do have the reach. It's interesting to me, though, right, when a platform tries to retrofit a business model onto a platform that wasn't necessarily designed for it. I mean, in that sense, I watch Facebook with the F-commerce. It was never really designed for business transactions, and I think at some point, for me, right, and this is my opinion, so unsolicited, but I think it falls down a little bit because, there are plenty of businesses on Facebook that don't have verification, so you don't know whether the address is right. Their ability to map things properly hasn't really worked so well. Line itself is this whole business push that they have. It will be interesting to see how it plays out, right? It's a great idea, like you said. People interact with very few apps on their mobile devices. I don't even want to call them phones anymore. But that that interaction online is obviously very heavy. Like you said, I don't think it's just Thais, but people wake up in the morning and the first thing they do is check their favorite chat app. Did my friends contact me? Where's my family? And if they're particularly if they're not in this country. But how do they retrofit that whole platform, right? It never had a timeline in it really that people use. How do they retrofit that to then get that business interactivity and then be able to do transactional things to actually make money off it besides just selling the stickers, which had been for a while their biggest way to monetize their business, which is true, right? But now,
Yeah.
I really want to come back to you, right? So you're working at these big companies, and you have this vision, right, for how mobile is supposed to get used. And I've bumped up against this so many times, not just when I was working at big companies myself, but even today when I interact with those companies, right? Just getting them to make a decision, any decision. There are just so many layers of kind of decision makers that it amazes me that anything actually ever gets done, right? So the slowness and the sort of lumbering ability for them to make decisions is actually interesting to me. But you're here you are, right? You notice that mobile is really going to take over the world. You really want to know, what do people think, right? What's their opinion on a product? What's their view of a brand? How do they react to things? How do they feel? And what's the best way to get them to give feedback? So then you say to yourself, I can't do this inside of a massive corporation anymore, even though they have all these resources. So I'm going to go to Buzzebees, right? I'm going to work with Michael, and I'm going to do Marketbuzzz. So how does that work? And then do you want to just tell me, I know what Buzzebees is, right? But maybe you can give a little background on that for people that may or may not know, and then talk about Marketbuzzz too and how that grew out of that Buzzebees business, if that's okay, because I'm really curious.
Yeah, let me follow the chain there. I'm not close enough to the line overall business, and
Sure. Neither am I.
So I can't really comment on that. I would say if they're trying to retrofit their business model, they'd have to be very careful technology-wise to get it right.
Yep.
Yes, of course, it was a very dominant chat-up, and the key seller was all the stickers. So to add different functionality to it and to be able to offer a seamless platform is going to take a lot of work. I'm sure Line have had a look at that and
sure.
and worked on the best possible approach that they can in order to do it. I think they've been successful so far. However, time will tell if the platform really is able to deliver on all the content that Thais and obviously the Indonesians and Taiwanese and so forth want throughout the region. And obviously for Line, I think their more important aspect around that is they're in 4 countries. Can they grow bigger than 4? Right. And grow beyond that. For our business and for specific business at MarketBuzz, we set up only 2.5 years ago, so it's a very new business for us. And I originally had spoken to Michael about the opportunity, and his base of people had grown to a substantial amount even when I joined, which was probably about 3 million Thais on smartphone through his applications that they've built.
But that's not just Buzzebees, right?
Yeah, the Buzzebees was 3 million when I joined, and then it's progressively gone to over 20 million now. That's total users. Active users is about 10 million.
On the Buzzebees platform. Buzzebees is it's a mobile e-commerce platform?
It's a mobile CRM platform. It builds loyalty through their corporate partners. So they've got a number of different corporate partners that they have, and they connect their customers to privilege programs, to an e-commerce environment as well. Similar strategy in the sense that, if you can keep people as active as possible and give them what they want, so it's shopping, e-commerce, it's privileges, so give them free things or give them discounted options, and we know what works and what doesn't work here, and we can offer the best deals to our corporate partners. And as that grows and builds, there's a tremendous amount of information that's collected behind the users. In addition to it, we can tap into that user base. And 10 million Thais out of a total population of 67 million and growing is a significant portion of the population which we can access at any time and ask them questions and get their opinions and their viewpoints on it. So that's really how MarketBuzzz was created. It's really a subsidiary of Buzzebees, and we define it as a one-stop shop for really mobile market research and marketing solutions.
And is that a profit-making business as well? Is it more set up as a cost center business for Buzzebees, just to better understand how their 10 million monthly active users and their 20 million sort of subscribers or downloaders are using the platform? What's the sort of mid-goal and mid-term goal and long-term goal for how that platform's going to work? What's the idea?
For the platform itself, it's obviously to grow the base and keep people as engaged and as active as possible. So that's the important thing. Our business certainly relies on those numbers because it provides the access point to the Thais to collect and look at the opinions or the viewpoints from them. So the long-term goal is certainly it's not there for just to add engagement. It's really there to add to our clients and to build a formative business. In fact, when you have a look at it, there's not too many competitors in the data and the market research for the collection of information that's anything close. You've got other companies which have 100,000, maybe 150,000 at best, 50,000. But you have to ask the question, is that good enough to collect all the information that you need, and is it representative of Thailand as a market? I'd rather bet on having 10 million than 100,000.
Yeah, I mean, in almost all cases, the more the merrier. Not necessarily in all of them, but in most cases, for sure.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. And just a point to that, and you know, when you're looking at some of the target audiences our clients are looking at, you know, in recent cases, it's been mothers with kids, with young kids 0 to 3, and you know, when we can access over 2 million of those and give people feedback on it. Then it's very fast and very efficient in terms of cost versus any other approach that people are looking at the market now. What does it mean? It basically means that the companies that are using it can make decisions a lot faster and can be on top of the decisions much quicker than perhaps what they've been used to.
Do you want to just walk me through how that works? So you have these 10 million users, right? Do you actively do you actually go out and ask them questions, give them surveys, and kind of expect answers back from them? And I guess in return for that, they'll get some bonus points and they'll get goods on the other side. I just want to know exactly how that process works so I can get a better understanding. And then understand, so there are, out of those 10 million, you know, there's a certain percentage of them that are mothers with small children. And clearly, you know, baby sites, whether it's, you know, Tembe in Vietnam or anywhere in Indonesia where they have these baby sites, they're going to want that information so they can better target what those mothers want. The Asian Parent is one that probably does this really well, right, regionally out of Singapore. But I'm just wondering, like, how does that process exactly work, if you can walk me through it?
Yeah, let me take a step back there. Every company needs information to make decisions. They use a lot of the data and they collect that information. Most of that information previously has been collected through face-to-face interviews, and what we mean by that is having an interview or going asked or stop someone or knocking on their door and saying, you know, do you mind if you answer a few questions? Now with the mobile, which is in people's hands, we can post surveys up there, and then we can interview the people on the mobile themselves. Now, we make sure that's targeted. So, yes, it can be a mother with kids 0 to 3. It could be someone who is passionate about automobiles. It could be a fitness fanatic. It could be consumers of this type of beverage or that type of beverage. It could be those people who use fast food. It just depends on who our clients are. Most of them are large-scale multinational clients that are looking for information on their products or their brands or services. So we'll collect that information. We'll post the survey up. They will obviously be designed, the survey will be designed to a specific objective based on what the client's information needs are. We collect that information back. We simply post it up. We collect thousands of responses back. Then we process the information. We analyze the information for certain clients and then send it back to them.
And when you say you post up a survey, what does it look like to you as a user? I'm in the Buzzebees platform. I'm looking for some rewards or some benefit, and a survey pops up. Is that what happens?
Yeah, let me paint the picture there so it's a little bit clearer.
Thank you.
Inside the application, we've got all sorts of different types of programs running, and some of them are privileges where you get discounts. You click on it and get a discount of this and that. For the surveys, it's somewhat similar. You see a campaign up there. We call it a campaign, which is effectively a graphic picture up there that you can see with inside the application, and it says something like answer a short survey and redeem points. So if they answer the survey and complete it, so it's a completely opt-in, it's their choice whether they do the survey or not. They can click on it, then they start to fill the survey in. Once they fill the survey in, on the platform itself, you get points. So every activity that you do, you get points, and you accrue those points similar to a frequent flyer program. And then you can redeem them in either on the platform itself, so you can, for example, buy from our e-commerce platform, or even offline. So if you wanted to use your points and buy a coffee, you can go and buy a coffee at certain locations to use your points that way as well. So offline to online, we offer as well.
So that's interesting. And then what do? You just accumulate all that data. So you're basically paid by, I'm going to make it up, right? Coca-Cola just says we really want to find out, or Pepsi, or whoever. Pepsi probably not so much anymore. But these big companies that want to find out some information about some group. I guess the reverse question is, if I'm a Buzzebees user, how do you know, how do you get my full information? How do you know who I am? Do you know what I mean? Like, of course, my phone has a MAC address and all the other sort of basic information that's on the phone, but how do you know who I am? And how do you know if I've got a 3-year-old kid or a 20-year-old daughter?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first point around that, and this is really important for a market research perspective, is we never link an individual's name. It remains anonymous anyway.
Sure.
And when our clients, such as the clients you've mentioned, and many more multinationals, they're collecting information specific to that target audience. So we ask questions to ensure that we get down to that specific target audience. So we ask questions on whether they have kids, how old is the kids, and then we only ask specific questions when we know they've got a kid, say, for example, 0 to 3. And then we ask the certain questions around that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting to me. I mean, Asia is a place where people are willing to actually give up information about themselves in return for some type of benefit. And frankly, privacy as it stands and as a concept is really kind of a new concept. I mean, if you look at what happens in the West, people are all up in arms about, you know this about me, you know that about me. But I don't think most people, first of all, I think most people operate in a way that's honest and open. And I frankly don't think that anybody that's not doing anything wrong really cares if you know how old they are and how many kids they have. I don't think that's a problem, right? And I think that the ability to accumulate that data, if that's what Buzzebees has been able to do, or Marketbuzzz has been able to do, and then give that information. Look, it's no different than what Nielsen used to do in the television market in the United States, or just these sort of blind, cola tests that they used to do. You'd sit down, you'd give your information. It wasn't associated with your name, but you were happy to do that and get a free case of Coca-Cola, whatever it was, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the points are absolutely correct. We never divulge the information anyway in terms of linkage to an individual or a phone number in any way that they can be tracked back. But your point is very, very correct, and that is even for Thailand, but the other countries as well. People are willing to give opinions and viewpoints. But I would say this, it's dropping considerably, because what we've found over the years is the big corporations keep saying, oh, can you add this question and can you add that question? And you end up with an interview that's an hour long. So on average, you've got someone standing on the street corner for an hour long asking them all these sorts of questions, and it's just not right for the individual. And while they're accepting of it because they're being paid for it, it's becoming really hard to get them to give you that time. And mobile, again, allows you to do that. And in fact, one of the key points that we have been very clear with our business is we don't accept any interviews longer than 15 minutes. And 15 minutes is still a reasonable amount of time to collect information. And you can go back and ask these people as many questions as you like. That's okay at another time. But at any one given time, you've got 15 minutes to ask the questions that you need, and that's reasonable. Our clients have found it fine. They ask multiple surveys if they need to get more information, and obviously it is cost efficient to do it that way. But you don't have the issue with people saying, "Okay, do I still have to answer these questions after an hour?" Right. And then you have to question what information are you going to get back, because I'm sure after 45 minutes, I'd be probably saying 4, 6, 5, 3, 2, whatever the answer is going to be.
Yeah, I don't think anybody
too much about it.
Right. I don't think anybody cares. I mean, I think you're right. There's a time limit, but you also bring up another really interesting point, and that is, I'm willing to give away some of my privacy because the privacy itself, to me, whoever me is, right, doesn't have necessarily that much value. But I don't really want to give you that much of my time because it's the only thing I can't get back.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about it too, and even in a shopping mall, and you're busy for the day, and someone stops you for a full hour of that, you're never going to get it back. And usually what's the case is they may say to you, okay, can you give us some of your time? You don't realize it's going to take you a full hour to complete all the survey either. So yeah, I think privacy is an issue. I think it'll become increasingly an issue, particularly with things like the digital footprint and people understanding, how did you get my name or anything like that. But again, we don't necessarily need that. And for our platform as well, the surveys are posted up onto our platform, so they have the choice. They decide whether or not they will do it or not do it. And, it's their choice whether or not they subscribe to doing the surveys. And, they do other things up there as well. They obviously participate in all the privilege programs, and, potentially they're downloading games or even apps as well. And they have the option to do the surveys. So there's nothing really there that links any private conversation or linkage to private information with the survey data anyway.
And in your view, what's the future of this sort of data gathering business, right? So at the beginning, and I feel like we're just this is at this nascent stage, right? People are happy, and I use the word purposely, but I think people are happy to fill out forms and do surveys. But I think over time, everything creates a little bit of fatigue. There's fatigue in video, there's a little bit of Facebook fatigue. There's definitely some advertising fatigue. How do you prevent against sort of survey fatigue? And if you do, how do you continue to get the necessary opinions and necessary feedback from your mobile clients without, alienating them?
Yeah,
what's the future?
Very good question. Yeah, if I look at it at a broader level, what you've got now with the situation with technology and mobile phones and everything like that, you've got more data that's collected than we've ever possibly seen. And,
surely,
the numbers will tell you that it keeps increasing. And I remember even going back to 2000 and seeing. The year 2000, that is, and seeing how much data was collected just over the 1990s. And that was just really the start of what computer technology was all about. And as we've grown, it just continually increases. And with it comes, better systems, better process, bigger size engines to run it on. But in the end, you've got a lot of information, and companies need to be able to sift through all that information and make decisions. So if anything, there's probably too much information at the moment, and it's trying to create the value from the data that they're getting in addition to supplementing what they don't currently have. So I would then supplement that by saying that all companies need the information. There's no question. So data strategy is really at the center point for all corporations. And then if you then split it up and say, okay, well, what's right information and what is so important for my business, then you have to have a strategy around that to determine what it is. Information that we're collecting at the moment is information that can be done via surveys. But yes, you're right. People only have the patience to do a certain number of questionnaires, and there is only so much you can take of those as well. But we're also collecting information on. Let me just give you some examples, but one of them is passive monitoring. So it monitors your behavior on the device. And so it allows you to know exactly what you're doing, where you're going, which apps are you using, which websites are you going to search or to buy. So we're collecting information, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the survey format. The survey format is really just for questions you don't know and need that extra information. And usually that's around why. The why questions. Why are people doing this, or why do they like that product as opposed to that? All the behavioural information is collected through other means now.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a lot of it is, right? So you're basically operating in the background on your application. So MarketBuzzz or Buzzebees actually has a background process, presumably, that runs and essentially follows people, not just location-wise, but where they're looking at on the internet. So you're tracking, if I open a website that has bicycles on it, you're like, oh my God, this guy loves bicycles, and you kind of record that somewhere. You make a really interesting point earlier, right? This whole concept of too much information, it always gets back to me to something that one of our sort of quant traders said to me when I was at Goldman Sachs, and that is, engineers spend all this time sifting, like you said, through data. And really what they're trying to do is separate signals from noise. And the more data you have, the more, it's just information, right? And some of the data is really useful, but finding the useful information is getting harder and harder. In essence, finding those signals and eliminating that noise. In other words, getting more data, like we said earlier, in all cases is not necessarily better by definition, because you've just got to sift through way more of it, right? Now, to the extent that you can find those signals may be more powerful. But it's interesting to me that, like you said, it's not just surveys. It's literally tracking what people are doing in the background to find out what their interests are, what their location is, and things like that. And that to me is really where the future of this data collection is going. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And it comes back to the point I made on the strategy, and you put it in a wonderful way with the engineers, and that is that you've got to sift through all this noise in order to find the patterns. But there's another layer to that, and that is that someone has to process that information and make sense of it.
Right.
And in order to affect or influence the decision that the company is going to make, they have to take that data and say, okay, this is what it means for the business, or this is what it means for our marketing, and for whatever reason. So you've probably got the three layers. You've got the data. You're then analyzing the data through whatever means, and then you're taking critical decisions on it.
Right. So what does that mean for the structure of the MarketBuzzz business, right? Because the MarketBuzzz business, it's not a consumer-facing business, right? It's a B2B business, yes?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
it's principally a B2B. Yeah.
In other words, I don't get the right to publish a survey, but again, if one of your large MNC clients wants to publish a survey, they pay you for that, and then you go to it, and then you analyze data, and I'm presuming they get to analyze the data as well, which is great. But does that mean that MarketBuzzz, right, because does that mean you go out and hire a slew of data scientists, so that you maintain all of that data that you capture as well, and you build your own, database is the wrong word, right? But do you build your own proficiency around it, or do you outsource the data analysis stuff that you do, but just create the way to get that data? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. The first element around it is that the data that we collect is in different formats. So we call it structured and unstructured data, and it comes from various different sources. So the key point to that is it will always come from different sources anyway. We have the team here, and part of the MarketBuzzz business is to have the data scientists or really the data analysts that are compiling the data, processing it, in other words, removing all that noise out of it, and then making sense for the clients. And really, that's our core business. It doesn't really matter what the data is coming in and whatever format. We'll do it, yes, with surveys if we don't have the information. If we do have the information or we collect it in other formats, we combine it and integrate the data together, and then send that off to our corporate partners.
And do you get paid also for helping them make those decisions, or do you just provide sort of the trend that's in your information, leave it to them, and just say, okay, look, now you need to decide where you place that Coca-Cola machine, or how much fizzy water you put into the case? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it varies. Some clients just need the data to make a quick decision. So is this concept better than that concept? Okay, we'll go with that one over that one. Easy decision. If it's more strategic, then they will require more consultancy, and obviously helping them or working with them to make the decisions that they need for their business. So it works both ways. Principally, if you looked at our business, a lot of it more is to do with the data analytics side at the moment.
Right.
But about 20% is more the consultancy work as well.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, that business, it's really like, in a way, it's almost like Buzzebees is just a facilitation business for data collection to create a data scientist function on the MarketBuzzz side. It's just an interesting combination of both of those businesses. How big is your team?
Yeah. And just it really, that's the platform. So we offer the platform for our clients to access and the ability to collect that information back.
Right.
If they want the extra services, we've got them, or we partner with other companies, which we do quite a lot.
Right.
We partner with other companies who are working with their specific clients that make those decisions. So in principle, it is the platform, and we collect the data. Yeah, and the team itself is growing. We're a team of 6 at the moment, with a number of positions that we're aiming to fill by the end of the year. The growth that we've seen, and I will tell you that the number of the people doesn't really indicate the size of the business, because technology is really the principal driver here. So you don't necessarily need as many people to achieve what we need to. In terms of the data collection. But it's growing. I mean, the business itself this year will probably grow by about 300%. So it's going from it's growing at a fast rate, and that's the same projection as what we had last year.
Yeah, congratulations. There's nothing like being in a business that grows 300% a year.
Yeah, and that's just the analytics team I've spoken about there. Of course, you've got the other supporting units and so forth, which we've got with the support of Buzzebees as well. I mean, Buzzebees is now, I think, at about 160 staff.
Right,
and that's a business. That's a business that's just started in 2012 as well. So,
yeah, I know.
We can't really call it a startup anymore, because it's growing so quickly.
Well, and it sits in a conglomerate of other businesses as well, which always makes what Michael does pretty interesting. So, what is the future? Do you expand into other countries, into other regions? You must have competitors globally, right? I mean, you cannot be the only people out there creating, data like this.
Yeah.
So what's the end game for this business, you think?
Yeah, the way in which we collect it on the platform is fairly unique, and the way in which we do that is the competition tends to be more panel companies, and again their sizes determine the amount of work that goes through. Sure. For us, it works the other way, where where the size of the engagement programs and loyalty programs helps or benefits us in that way. So the plan of attack for us is really to take advantage of Thailand, which we've been doing a reasonable job at so far, but there's plenty more opportunity just here, which has been a focus point over the last 2.5 years. The plan is to go to Southeast Asia. So we've launched in Malaysia and Indonesia. So that started on the back of the Buzzebees CRM program. So we're aiming to then set up a Marketbuzzz in those locations come next year.
And it's all marketed on the same platform. In other words, when so when you go to Indonesia, it's just Buzzebees Indonesia and Marketbuzzz Indonesia, and the same thing for Malaysia, right? It's not like you're creating a different brand for localization purposes.
No, the end game will be that. At the moment, it's not that way, but yeah, it will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look,
and the focus is Southeast. I was just going to say the focus is Southeast Asia. People have asked us, can we go elsewhere, and are we looking at other markets, particularly China and so forth like that. But at the moment, we consider Southeast Asia, and particularly with the size of Southeast Asia, it's going to provide plenty of opportunity, at least for the near future, and then we'll have a look from that beyond there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a quick view on China for me, and that is for every Buzzebees that there is in Southeast Asia, there are probably 10,000 of them in China that you've never heard of. And that's just because the scope of the geographic size is just so large, but also 1.5 billion people live in China. The likelihood that no one's done this yet. And by the time a Southeast Asian company gets to China, unless they've done something that's wildly innovative, they're just going to be run over. In my mind, it has nothing to do with Buzzebees or Marketbuzzz, but it's going to get run over by 10,000 other people competing with you. So it's an interesting concept, right? But I do think you can own Southeast Asia for sure, and that's a gigantic business. 630 million people is nothing to shake a stick at, as my grandmother used to say. The opportunity is huge. So.
No, we support that. I mean, there's probably similar technology up there, and you've only got to have a look at the big businesses up there, whether it's WeChat and Tencent, Alibaba, and what they're doing is just simply amazing and on a massive scale worldwide. So, how do you compete with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. And look, I think we should probably end here. I feel like we could continue to go on more. But I really just wanted to thank you so much for your time and also for the just super useful and really interesting information and conversation. Again, because the Marketbuzzz business is a B2B business, doesn't get a lot of exposure to consumers. And I think, the Buzzebees business, obviously it has 10 million people using it every month, so people are aware of it. But the Marketbuzzz business is newer. But could potentially have a bigger impact. So it was a very interesting conversation for me, and I really appreciate your time. So I want to thank Grant Bertoli, the CEO of Marketbuzzz, for spending so much time with us. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you too, Michael. Enjoyed it.
Cheers.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Asia Tech Podcast. Find out more at www.asiatechpodcast.com.